Yeah, another number of neonatal deaths at the hospital was also discussed by another witness this week, and that was Sir David Spiegelhalter. Now, he's an emeritus professor of statistics at Cambridge University. Now, he's given evidence at other inquiries, including the one which looked into Harold Shipman, and he's also previously backed calls for the statistics to be analysed more by this inquiry. And we know that the use of stats, specifically that shift chart or the graph which was shown to the jury, which showed Lucy Letby being on duty each time a baby was allegedly killed or harmed, has been one of the main points of focus for those questioning her convictions. But Professor Spiegelhalter wasn't asked questions about the chart or the use of stats in the trial. He did, however, begin his evidence by emphasising the need for rigorous analysis and caution before reaching conclusions on data alone.
The reason why statistics are so important is that numerous studies and personal experience have shown that humans are not very good at judging data. They can miss long-term trends, slowly accumulating changes, which they can miss that. And on the other hand, they can perhaps pay too much attention to sporadic runs of bad outcomes due to unknown factors and trying to find patterns that may not actually exist. So these are well-known human characteristics, and that's why we need statistical analysis.
He said he'd recently looked at the number of deaths on the hospital's neonatal unit between 2010 and 2016, and he said that up until 2015, the number was surprisingly consistent. He said that according to hospital data, there was 1 death in 2010, 2 in 2013, and 3 in 2011, 2012, and 2014. But we know that the number of deaths then jumped to 8 in 2015, and by July 2016, when Lucy Letby was moved off the unit, there had been another 5. And he said he'd calculated the chance of 8 deaths happening in 2015 to be very low.
The probability of getting 8 or more deaths in 2015 I assess to be around 0.008, just by chance alone, assuming that nothing had actually changed, that the underlying rate had stayed the same. The probability of getting 8 or more is that, which is less than 1%.
Yeah, he said this 8 deaths would be considered sufficient to trigger an investigation at a local level at the hospital, like the internal and external reviews that Dr. Stephen Breary and later the medical director Ian Harvey initiated into the spike in deaths.
The numbers have gone up.
The numbers have gone up.
They're small numbers as well.
Its numbers have gone up. They're small numbers, but just because numbers have gone up does not mean necessarily that there's a special cause for it.
As you've explained, that needs investigation.
It needs to be investigated.
Interestingly, he stressed that on a national level, 8 deaths would not be considered extreme enough for the Countess to be considered an outlier.
Yeah, he said when compared to the other 150 neonatal units across the UK, he would expect one signal of this magnitude in at least one hospital every year. He also gave the example of the neonatal unit at Blackpool Victoria Hospital, which in 2015 also had a very similar neonatal mortality rate to that of the Countess.
This is a surprising event within Countess of Chester, but from a national level, this is not very surprising at all. We would expect this to happen every year, somewhere.